In today's video, I'm gonna show you the simple steps that we need to follow in order to start the engine for the PMDG 777 using the auxiliary power unit known as APU. And before I get started, please show your support to this channel by subscribing, liking and sharing. From startup to shutdown is all about flying with simulators. Currently, as you can see, my PMDG 777 is connected to the ground power unit, or GPU for short. And you can see on my electrical panel, both the primary and secondary external power are being used as shown by the on indicators. Now, to start the engine using the APU, I need first to start my APU. Using the APU start selector, I select to start. Now, to monitor the APU start progress, I can go to the display select panel and select status. This will bring the status page to the lower display unit, as you can see here. And as you can see, the APU operating parameters are shown here. On the upper display unit, APU running memo message will come up when the APU is ready to take the load. Since the APU generator control switch is left to on, which is the normal configuration, secondary external power will disconnect automatically, giving the priority to the APU generator, as you can see. Now I need to disconnect the primary external power as well. Now we have the two available indicator lights illuminated, indicating that the external power sources are completely disconnected from the electrical system. Now it's time to disconnect the GPU from the aircraft using the CDU menu page, FS Actions, then Ground Connections. Then I swap from Connected to Removed to remove the GPU. And from the external view, we can see my GPU is being removed. Now, before we can start the engine, it's always a good practice to check that the thrust levers are set to idle. And on the upper display unit, we check that the parking brake is on. Since the engine rating I'm using here is General Electric 90-110 Bravo, I'll be starting one engine at a time. Before starting the engine, I turn the beacon on. Moving to the hydraulic panel, and we need to configure the system. We always start with the right system by selecting the right demand pump selector to auto. This prevents the unwanted fluid transfer to the right system. Then we select the primary C1 and C2 pumps to on. Then we set the remaining demand pumps to the auto. Next, we configure the fuel panel. We select all the fuel pumps on except the center pumps if the center tank is empty. Otherwise, which is my case, I have to select them on. On the upper display unit, make sure that you have a sufficient duct pressure. Moving to the overhead panel, where the engine panel is located. To start the engines, we normally use the auto start, so make sure that the auto start switch is on. Then the engine start sequence will be engine number 2 followed by the engine number 1. To initiate the start, select the start selector to start. Then I select the right fuel control switch to run. Since we are using an auto start, EEC will manage all the parameters, including the fuel and ignition, except the oil pressure and temperature, which pilot has to monitor. When EGT start rising, we look for oil pressure start rising as well. When N2 reaches sufficient speed, the starter selector goes back to norm, indicating the starter cutout. The start sequence is complete when we see all the engine parameters are stabilized at idle. Then we can proceed with the engine number 1, following the same procedure as we did with the engine number 2. And this concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next tutorial.